Hey, my name's Paul. Tell me, have you ever met celebrities in everyday life? I mean, not just at concerts or some special events. I mean, like at the grocery store, the laundromat, coffee shop, or something. And imagine a celebrity lives next door to you. Impossible? Well, for me, it's real. You don't believe me? Well, you should because that's true. Want to know the details? Then make sure you watch this video to the end, and don't forget to click thumbs up. Let's go! Well, I should probably start with my family. My dad is quite a well-known guy in the city. Honestly, some people are even afraid of him. No, he isn't a policeman. He's not mafia or something. He's a journalist. Yeah, sounds funny. But my dad is a real professional. He specializes in journalist investigations. He solves some of the most complicated cases. Sometimes, even some experienced detectives were unable to do it. My dad exposes scammers who are doing their work dishonestly. He helps the police to put big criminals behind bars and does other cool things at his job. And when he has some spare time, he sometimes catches celebrities and exposes their secrets and gossips, like paparazzi or something. Someone may condemn it as it's a privacy violation, but my dad finds it interesting. Sometimes he jokes he keeps all the celebrities at gunpoint. Me and my mom never interfere in his job. From my dad, I inherited curiosity and passion for investigations and other people's secrets. When I was little, I often played detective. I tried to find out which of the toys committed a crime, stealing candies from the kitchen. Teddy bears and rabbits were sitting in front of me, and I was doing my interrogation. I even called witnesses. I invited garden gnomes from the backyard. My dad always laughed and smiled when he watched me playing. When I grew up, I started greedily reading detective stories, and I had watched all seasons of Elementary several times. Plus, I liked watching documentaries about the most mysterious investigations in history. Anyway, the apple never falls far from its tree. One day, when the new school year was just a month away, my dad announced we had to move. He said he got promoted and he started earning more. So he had saved up and bought a house in an elite area of the city. My mom was very happy. She was looking forward to showing her new home to her friends. But I didn't like it, however. The new house was too far from my school. That meant I had to change school just 2 months before the graduation. Living in the elite neighborhood meant I had to study in the elite school among the posh kids. When we drove up to our new house, I was carefully observing the cars of my future neighbors. All of them were obscenely expensive and luxurious. I never thought one day we would live in such a place. Every house there looked like a residential complex. It had a high 7-foot fence. You just couldn't see anything behind the fence no matter how hard you'd try. But it's not surprising if you take into account the people who owned such houses and the amount of money they had. So, the access to the elite residential area was available only with a special key card every resident had. There were also surveillance cameras everywhere. I think you've already guessed, this was kinda a super cool place to live. If I were a famous politician or a superstar, I would definitely choose this area, as I would feel safe here. In the end, me and my dad were happy about everything. But my mom didn't appreciate all the precautions of our new neighborhood. She hoped to make friends with the neighbors. She wanted to get into the social circle. But in fact, even after a week of living there, I had totally no idea who lived in the houses nearby. I even didn't know if anyone lived there at all because I never saw a person next to our new home. But late in the evening, the lights came on in the neighboring windows, which meant someone was still there. However, the curtains were tightly closed, so I couldn't see anyone. It was impossible to exactly determine whether someone lived there alone or with a family, whether it was a man or a woman, and so on. This situation awoke my sincere curiosity and my desire to reveal the truth. Who are my neighbors? So I started to carefully monitor the houses next to us. It turned out some family lived to the right of us. Early in the morning, an expensive car drove out of the gate. But behind the black windows, it was impossible to see the people in the car. For some reason, I was sure it was some kind of politician. There was always a lot of security with him, and the car itself looked very powerful and impressive. It was more like a bulletproof tank. A little later, another car drove away from the house. I saw it several times at the school gates. I concluded the daughter or the son of this very politician was coming to school. After watching the car a little, I saw a well-groomed 9-year-old. She was always accompanied by a security guard. Sometimes after lunch, a red Ferrari would drive out of the same house. It was difficult not to notice it, as the car usually left the territory with a loud roar. Most likely, the red lightning was driven by the wife of the politician, and she was hurrying about her business. As soon as I unscrambled all this stuff, I got bored watching this house, so I switched to another one, and things were not so easy with it. Why? Because someone rarely appeared there. For the first month, I even seriously thought the house was empty. But one morning, a work van with a cleaning service logo drove up to it. Several women and men got out and went inside. It was easy to guess. Most likely, the workers came there to put the house in order before the owner would arrive. That evening, I decided I should definitely see who lived in the next house, even if I had to stay up all night for this. The most offensive thing for me was in the morning when I woke up, I realized I had overslept and missed everything. There were no cars or other signs of life next to the house, so I was sure that the owner either had already left or had never arrived. I had almost gone to sleep when I saw a strange silhouette approaching the house. It was wearing black jeans, a black jacket, a black cap, and a face mask. It was impossible to see whether it was a man or a woman, though from the broad shoulders and tall height, I guessed most likely the stranger was a man. He was looking around for a while. Then he went to the gate, used a key card, and disappeared inside. After a while, the light came on in the house. My first thought was to call the police. See for yourself. A stranger could be a thief who secretly made his way to someone else's territory to take out the most valuable things, and he could have stolen the key card from the real owner, whom he had killed before, or... I stopped my fantasy because I thought it was too early to make conclusions and call the police. Instead, I decided to watch. I told my mom I was not feeling well, so I had to skip school. She didn't object. The stranger did not leave the house after an hour, 2 hours, even 12 hours. I decided if he was a thief, he wouldn't spend so much time there. He would have quickly done his business and escaped before anyone noticed him. Besides, a car drove up to the house later. A middle-aged woman and a young girl got out of it. Judging by the number of bags in their hands, they brought some food. It turned out the owner entered into the house and not a thief. But why did he do it in such a mysterious way? After all, if, for example, I go back to my house, I do it through the front door, and I don't sneak around early in the morning like a criminal trying to be unnoticed. My thoughts were interrupted by my mom, who called me to dinner. My dad didn't often come home from work early, but today he was at home. So even my sickness was not an excuse to miss a full family dinner. My dad looked tired. When my mom asked about his work, he replied he was working on a new case. And this was not just another investigation. It was an article about a famous artist. They said he was in a relationship with several girls at once. It turned out he deceived every one of them, telling her she was the one and only. When the truth started going out, this guy decided to lay low so that no one could find him and get a comment or an explanation of the situation. My dad said he had been watching the studio where this artist worked, but in vain. They promised my dad a decent sum of money for the article about him, so my dad wanted to do it at all costs. Besides, he wasn't used to giving up in the middle of the fight. When I returned to my room, I searched on the internet for what this artist looked like. Google said he was tall, slender, had a well-built figure, and broad shoulders. In one of the photos, only a silhouette was seen. It reminded me very much of the same stranger who made his way to the neighbor's house early in that morning. What if this was him? What if the artist my dad was looking for lived just next door? I wanted to test my guesses, so I looked out of the window, and to my surprise, I saw my neighbor. He was standing on the porch saying goodbye to his guests. He briefly hugged both women. Then they went out of the gate, got into a car, and drove away. He stood in the yard for a little longer. Then he stretched, turned around, and went inside. The light above his front door turned on, and I could clearly see his face. Bingo! Indeed, it was the same famous artist my dad was looking for. I wanted to run to my dad to share my discovery, but then I thought, hey, do I have the right to hand over this person? After all, if he hides from everyone and even sneaks into his own house like a thief, maybe he has a reason for this. Anyway, now I can't decide what to do. Should I tell my dad about the neighbor, or keep silent and let the artist live peacefully, feeling safe? What would you do if you were in my shoes? Please write your answers in the comments below. I'm sure that you liked my story. I'm waiting for the likes and subscriptions to my channel. By the way, don't forget to click thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notifications to stay tuned. There are many stories waiting for you. Bye!